Good morning and welcome to the pre-market view, friends. The positive momentum in the US market continues, and both Dow and Nasdaq and even S&P were up almost about 0.3 to 0.4%, as there was a sudden unexpected fall in the unemployment rate to almost about 330,000, and this is for the third month in a row that we have seen a fall in the unemployment rate. And currently unemployment rate stands at the lowest level of last 5 years, which is extremely positive for the US economy as a whole. European markets were also up anywhere from about 1 to almost about 1.5%. No major data points to look at, but the European Ministers Summit is undergoing in Brussels, wherein the heads of most of the states are going to participate to discuss about various issues, from unemployment to the ways to curtail this financial crisis. And when we look at the Asian markets today morning, Japan is up almost about 0.7%, even Hang Seng is up about 0.2%, and most of the other markets are subdued. In another important development, the appointment of the BOJ chief has been affirmed by the upper house of the Parliament of Japan. So the economic policies that the country is following could get some further momentum in terms of further reforms. So that is definitely positive for the Japanese markets as a whole. Talking about the flows, friends, yesterday FIs were net buyers in the cash market to the tune of about 729 crore. The domestic institutions were sellers to the tune of almost about 830 crore. So we've seen that though the FI flows has increased over the past few days, it is met by the equal selling by the domestic institutions. So net inflow doesn't seem to be too much. But interestingly, in the options market, we have seen a huge sell figure by the FIs of almost about 2,200 odd crore. Remember, friends, in the past few trading sessions, FIs had bought a huge amount of options to the tune of almost about 6,000 crore. And this, after a long time, we are seeing some kind of a selling in the options market. Friends, back home we saw a very sudden and dramatic recovery in our markets post the announcement of the inflation number, which was definitely a little higher than expectations, but the core inflation that came in at 3.8% was a major relief, and that has actually increased the possibility of the rate cut on March 19th RBI meet. And also we had a major revelation by one of the online websites about the money laundering schemes being encouraged by the private sector banks like Axis Bank, HDFC Bank and ICICI Bank. And though there was a sudden knee-jerk reaction in these stocks, there was an equally sharp rebound of about 4 to 5% from the low of the day. We would wait for some kind of a clarification from these banks on to the extent of the violation involved and the possible impact that one can expect in the earnings going forward. But overall, we think that this will not have any material impact on the earnings per se. But none of the banks have actually come up with any major clarification, accepting the fact that most of them have ordered investigation into this matter, which is quite an interesting thing to note. And on that note, let me invite Sadhana to take us through important F&O cues, data and strategies that we can have in the F&O space.
Good morning, friends. Let's have a view on derivatives. Yesterday, markets have turned around towards the northward direction, and after sell-off in early hour of the trade, followed by significant increase in the cost of carry, and around 2.31 lakh shares were reduced in open interest, indicating short positions were squared off by market participants, and hoping that RBI would monetary policy rates on coming Tuesday. On the options front, 6,100 and 6,200 strike side, call strike side seen a good number of activity, and 6,000 put strike side seen a good number of activity. So overall, the momentum will continue going forward, and one can accumulate these stocks. And on higher side, we can see the levels of 6,000 with a stop loss of 5,900 on intraday basis. From intraday perspective, one can go long on TCS with a stop loss of 1,554.60 and Hind Petro with a stop loss of 302.75, and one can go short on Chambal Fertilizer with a stop loss of 56.30. Thank you.
Friends, here are the important news and events that we are tracking today. First of all, as I said before, the inflation data that came in at about 6.84% was slightly higher than expectations, which was despite the fact that the fuel prices have been increased, which is definitely a bit of a positive for the market. And the core inflation came in at about 3.8%, which definitely is quite a big positive for the markets, and that's why we saw a big broad-based rally into the interest rate sensitives like banks, auto, and to some extent even real estate stocks. And the December inflation data has been revised upwards to about 7.31 as against 7.18. In other important events to watch out for, today is the last day for the Q4 advanced tax numbers, and overall that number doesn't look too encouraging, though we will wait for the final number to be out. But most of the companies in the financial services space, and even companies like Reliance Industries and some of the companies in the cement space, have reported reasonably good growth in the advanced tax numbers, but overall the growth may not be that strong. In another important development, the NALCO floor price has been set at 40 rupees a share as against the price of about 44, which is much lower than the all-time low for the stock, and one has to see what kind of response does this generate. But definitely it looks quite attractive from an investment perspective. And in another development, RBI has relaxed the norms for collaterals for the FIIs, and whereby the government is looking at allowing both the corporate and the government bonds as collateral for the future and option segment of the stock exchanges, which is definitely a big positive for the FI investment. Airline industry is again facing some kind of a competition, as Jet has come out with a discount schemes for the customers who book their ticket 60 days in advance will get somewhere close to about 25% discount. So this is a bit of a negative for the airline industry as a whole. So one can expect some negative reaction in Jet stock and to some extent on the SpiceJet on the back of this. HPCL and the government of Rajasthan has signed a MOU to set up a refinery in Badmer district of Rajasthan for a total amount of about 37,230 crore, and we've also seen the crude prices actually going down to almost about $109, and we've seen the government actually looking at increasing the diesel prices by about 50 paise. So all that is definitely positive for HPCL. One can go long there with a stop loss of 299 and a target of about 314 to about 320. For Ultratech, some positive news as the strike by the workers has been called off, and one can go long on the back of that with a stop loss of 1871 and a target of about 1966 to about 2002. Jindal Steel and Power, a major announcement, as the company is likely to spend almost about $10 billion on the coal to liquid project, and they are also looking at setting up a 1500 megawatt of greenfield power plant in the African region. So one can go long on JSPL with a stop loss of 353 and a target of about 371 to about 378. That's it from all of us, friends. Have a great weekend and see you on Monday morning.